But I would like to fight other heavyweight boxers, such as Tyson Fury.
So at some point you'd be open to a super fight. Those are mega fights and make a lot of money.
Absolutely, I'm open to that. Remember, boxing was my primary dream, and I still have to fire the dream inside me, and I believe that at some point I'm gonna make a step.
What's good, family? Smash the like button and subscribe. So we just heard there from Francis, the spaceman, Ngannou. And when I heard these comments, I was very intrigued. And before we go into this whole Ngannou versus Fury, which by the way I'd love to see that fight. More specifically, I want the boxing community, I want the boxing organisers to change the gloves in boxing. This 8 ounces and 10 ounces, that needs to go, in my opinion. It needs to become 4 ounce UFC style gloves. Imagine the amount of KOs, because it's not like UFC fighters are using them anyway, so what difference does it make? Having 4 ounce gloves would, as we've seen, massively increases KOs, and the defense, it's a lot harder to be, or your defense gets exposed a lot quicker with them small gloves on. So I actually feel it increases the skill level. With 4 ounce gloves, you've got to be skillful, otherwise you're getting chinned. Either way you look at it, every shot counts with 4 ounce gloves on. Look at McGregor, for example. McGregor was the Iceman with 4 ounce gloves on. He puts boxing gloves on, and it just contrasts how much of the naturalness of the sport is being killed by the big gloves. My man McGregor goes from the Iceman, he can't knock the lid off a bottle in with boxing gloves on, and they was 8 ounces. They weren't even supposed to be boxing with 8 ounces on, but the Nevada Athletics Commission changed the rules for this one-off. They were 8 ounce gloves, 155-pound men, and he couldn't do anything with it. The same dude was icing people, so that just goes to show boxing would be deadly. And when you think about where each direction of sport is going between the UFC and boxing, UFC has arguably taken over, and that for me is a key factor. If boxing start doing them gloves, it's gonna be UFC gonna be dead, flat dead in the water. I'm not sure why one of these organisations needs to take a lead on this and say, you know what, we're gonna do a WBC, or one of these organisations, one of the 4 organisations should take the lead and say, from now on, in IBF fights, we're doing 4 ounce gloves. And you watch how the sport changes. Now anyway, we've done that part. Moving on. Ngannou versus Fury. That fight, I want to see that for sure. I want to see AJ versus Fury as well, but I want to see them all. I wouldn't mind seeing Ngannou versus AJ. But again, I think he'll get a big shock. Not against Fury, but he'll get a big shock coming into boxing with the big gloves on. A lot of the things you see, I believe, is just because of the gloves, seriously. But what we've got to remember is, boxing originally started bare knuckle. And that's how we should always be looking to get towards, in my opinion. The pureness of the sport. Boxing gloves, they're an addition, if that makes sense. They're making the sport less pure. The purest is pure bare knuckles. The reason they brought gloves on wasn't actually to protect fighters' heads, it was to protect their hands. So, in my opinion, we hear about less people. In fact, tell me a person who's broke their hands in UFC. I've never heard of it. So, I'm not sure what these gloves are doing. And also, in terms of head damage, I actually think the big gloves cause more brain trauma because it's less definitive. You're able to take loads of hits, trust me. When them 4 ounce gloves go on, as we've seen, we get, more or less everyone who gets touched in 4 ounce gloves goes to sleep. And that, in my opinion, is better than being 8 ounce or 10 ounce and just being bludgeoned, taking loads of hits. It's much better to be Amir Khan. The UFC gloves are basically like an Amir Khan version. In my opinion, in the YB's opinion, we need to get boxing to start adopting the Amir Khan gloves. It's no good these big bludgeoners ones, because for the excitingness of the sport, I mean, you'd be surprised. Very low level boxers have more power than top level UFC fighters. In the hands, that is. So you trust me, people who are big punchers in boxing, AJ, whoever else you want to pick, they would just be crazy. But more importantly, the average boxer would start. You'd be seeing clean KOs more or less from the start of the show to the end. It'd just be emphatic. And like I said, the fact that the gloves are smaller, people have to have good defense, because you can no longer just put earmuffs on. With 4-ounce gloves, you've got to be everything on point. Your skills got to be on point. You can't just stand there and put earmuffs on. And that also stops. It would, in my opinion, reduce the amount of boring fights. Most of the time we see boring fights is people like Gassiev versus Usyk, who just turn up and put their earmuffs on. You can't put earmuffs on with 4-ounce gloves. You'll be getting chinned the same way. I've seen people in UFC put their earmuffs on and just get chinned. Goes straight through. So what is the sport about? What are we doing? Are we trying to dilute the sport or not? If it's about the sport, if it's about who's the best man with the hands, we should be trying to optimize that and prove that as much as possible. Because where do you draw the line? Who picked 8 ounces or 10 ounces? That wasn't determined by some scientific research. They just plucked it out of thin air. And I think the fact the UFC's come along and shown that 4 ounces, it's not as if we've seen, oh wow. In fact, I can't even think of a UFC fighter who's actually passed away. I might be wrong, but I haven't heard of one. We have heard of loads of boxers passing away. Loads of them. So clearly I actually think it's, even in terms of the statistics, I think it's worse, the big gloves. I've never seen someone, thinking about it now, even in terms of serious head trauma, think about Adonis Stevenson, serious head trauma. In UFC, I've never seen someone, name me a name, where someone's come out of the fight and been proper murked. As in, really ill and had to be rushed off. I haven't heard of it. Maybe there probably is some people, but I can't think of any big names. Adonis Stevenson, at that point in time, was a world champion. Tell me when a world champion UFC fighter has been rushed off because they've been bludgeoned. And in the UFC, you've got knees and elbows and all sorts. I'm not sure what the science is behind it, but the bottom line is, the small gloves are better off. For everyone. The fans. The sport. The fighters themselves. You'll be seeing crazy KOs. And people with so-called defense like Fury, he'll be getting knocked out smooth. Because his defense ain't all that, if truth be known. His defense is mainly because of his gloves that cover him all up nicely. He can hide away behind them. But the point is, the bottom line is, put AJ in 4-ounce gloves versus Fury. It wouldn't go, even this AJ, it probably wouldn't go 3 round. Because he'd just get chinned. It'd be as simple as that. The first thing that landed, it'd go. The same way we saw people laugh about, oh, YB, you're having a laugh. No. You saw what happened to Stipe. And that was Ngannou. I don't care what no one says. In terms of boxing hands, AJ has much more power than Ngannou. But AJ's knocking people out with 8-ounce gloves, with 10-ounce gloves on. It's almost exponentially harder with them big bubbly gloves. Like I started the video off, look at McGregor. McGregor was icing dudes. Puts them big bubbly gloves on, can't do a lick. Floyd was laughing at him. Do you understand? McGregor was icing people. Turning them into statues. Gets to boxing, puts them big bubbly gloves on, and he can't do a lick. Floyd, to this day, stays punking McGregor. Yeah, I'd fight McGregor again. I wouldn't fight Errol Spence, but I'd fight McGregor again because it's easy work. He can't punch. That was honestly, of all the peak moments in sport, that was a top 10 peak moment for me. With the way that Floyd punked McGregor's punching power, he can't punch. I'd fight him all day. I'll fight him in 10 years. Swear down. Floyd Mayweather said he'd fight McGregor in 10 years from now because he can't punch. McGregor was the Iceman. Which shows that it's not really about... UFC punchers aren't really punchers. They're just good gloves and some accuracy. And in defense of McGregor, he himself even said, in them 4-ounce gloves, the chin can't take it in them 4 ounces. Imagine AJ with 4 ounces on. Wow. You'd just be seeing... It'd be beautiful. Because them right hands... You see them right hands, yeah? That AJ was landing on Ruiz. Ruiz would have been flat out. Swear down, no joke. Them right hands, them jabs, he'd be going jelly with all of them. And people can laugh, but what do we know? Look at Ngannou versus Stipe. Stipe got rocked off a jab. Again, it shows you how how spiteful, how much difference them 6 ounces make. It's crazy. It's literally the difference between, well, either way you look at it, it's the pureness of the sport. Ngannou versus Stipe just showed the pureness of hands, the pureness of boxing. Pure sport. Not, oh, well, it might go on for 12 rounds because we've got big bubbly gloves on. What are we doing? People want to see the sport. We don't want to see big gloves drag things out for 12 rounds. Or, just end the sport, innit? That's what I think. If you don't want to make it pure, don't bother doing it. Don't, oh, well, you might, like, where do you stop? Oh, well, we're going to put 50-ounce gloves on and make it go a million round because no one ain't got no power. I remember when I was little, I tried them. It was at some sort of circus or fair. They brought these big, massive gloves out. And they were so heavy. It must have been about 3 kilo. And you just can't do anything with them. And that's obviously exaggerated, but it's all relative. And as we've seen, Ngannou just touches people, and it's beautiful to watch. You don't really get them beautiful moments in boxing. Not in top level world championship boxing anyway. Even in heavyweights. You don't, trust me, like I said, them right hands AJ was rattling off of Ruiz, he'd have been laid to rest peacefully. You saw that picture I put up where Dustin Prober beat Conor McGregor and he was tucked into bed. He tucked him in. AJ would have tucked Ruiz, even a defensive AJ, he would have tucked him in with the right hands. Them 4-ounce gloves would be like, yep, and that'd be it. He'd be tucked in nicely. All the way in. But anyway, let me finish on this. Ngannou versus Fury. I want to see Ngannou in boxing for sure. That said, I'm not sure how effective he'll be in boxing because of, I hate to say it, but because of the gloves. I see it going a similar way. Yes, Ngannou's bigger than McGregor, but it's all... Ngannou will be wearing bigger gloves. He'll be on the 10 ounces as well. He won't be on the 8 ounces. People don't realise how much difference the gloves make. I don't want to make it all about the gloves. I might be wrong. Maybe Ngannou putting 10 ounces on and he'll still be icing people. I find it hard to believe though. I find it hard to believe people like AJ can't knock someone out of a jab, but Ngannou will. Maybe he's that great. I don't know. I beg to differ. AJ, there's levels to this game. Trained boxers, in my opinion, are always going to have sharper hands than even people like Ngannou. So, if he comes over to boxing, I'd still love to see it, because Fury ain't going to be able to knock him out, no way. Ngannou's chin certified. Stipe, I've never seen him rocked. He's been in there with everyone, never seen him rocked even a little bit. And it would be intriguing to see how it turned out between him and Fury, but I think Fury might just be a little bit, I don't know, it depends how aggressive Ngannou is. If Ngannou goes in there, and that's one thing you have to credit him for, at least in UFC, he don't play about. Even when he had the fear of the takedown, Ngannou weren't messing about. He got straight on his job, went to work, seek and destroy. Despite all that ground business. So now take out the ground stuff, I can see Ngannou hunting Fury down. Although, I think what Ngannou may struggle with, his used to being the taller fighter. In that fight, he'll be the smaller man. So he'll lose that. He'll lose that advantage, and he'll be the one who has to commit and take risk. So we just don't know, and that's what I've been saying about AJ as well. We just don't. When you've been a taller fighter your whole career, as AJ has been, as Ngannou has been, you'll be shocked how much difference 3 inches makes. You know what I mean? That's what she said. But no, on a serious note, so I'd like to think Ngannou will just come marching in and get to work. That's what he should do if he's got decent trainers. But we'd have to see it play out. Because anyone who really sits at long range, especially someone who's not a boxer, AJ might be able to beat Fury on the outside because he's a trained boxer. And his genetics may just be able to get him through it. I.e. AJ's genetics, despite being smaller in height than Fury, his speed and whatnot and power may just get him through that. May just get him through winning the fight on the outside. But Ngannou, who just hasn't perhaps got that boxing sharpness and having to fight in 10-ounce gloves for the first time, I'm not sure he'd be able to negotiate it on the outside. But then again, if Ngannou comes marching forward with a guard up, I'm not sure Fury can deal with it, truth be known. Especially this Fury, who isn't under Ben Davidson and isn't used to getting stuck in. Yeah. For all we know, it's going to be intriguing. If the Fury versus AJ fight does happen, it's going to be intriguing to see what style Fury adopts. If Fury comes marching forward, similar to the Wilder second fight, then fair play. It'll get mauled, no doubt, but at least then we'll know his Fury's serious. Then again, if he does come marching forward and AJ mauls him, he may likely go back to Ben Davidson, because Fury's on a roll at the moment. So there's too many ifs and buts. In the main, either way, without no ifs and buts, Ngannou coming to boxing, regardless of anything else, is a great thing. A great thing. I'd love to see what he can do. That said, as you've heard, I'm sceptical. He'd have to prove it. You know what I'm saying? He'd have to... Mate, listen, we just don't know. Maybe he'll put the 10-ounce gloves on and he'll still be the Iceman. Maybe he's going to transfer. Maybe he's just some next Prometheus thing. Like I said in my other video, maybe Ngannou is just some next Prometheus... Prometheus primordial soup thing. Yeah? I heard from some top scientist dons, they said to me that when they done Ngannou's DNA test, he comes from the last line from the primordial soup from Prometheus. Yeah, the elders, when that elder thing put that soup in the water, Ngannou's lineage, never mind John L. Sullivan. Ngannou went from John L. Sullivan. Ngannou's from Prometheus a couple 100 million years ago. Yeah? The Promethean primordial soup dons put that thing in the water, and his line traces straight back to that, the purest, no doubt. So we just don't know. That Promethean DNA, it may just mean that he goes in there and just ices everyone. You know what I mean? Then again, we can also argue, well, he went in there with Derek Lewis and got beat, but did he even really hit Derek Lewis properly? And also, we have to appreciate that he did move on from that. Although his skills that have moved on are arguably more suited to UFC. Either way, I want to see it. The worst case scenario, he comes over and it doesn't work out. He ain't lost nothing. But we just don't know how much Dana's willing to risk. You know what Dana's like. He's tight as you like. I can't imagine him willing to risk his big star. Because you've got to remember, Ngannou has the possibility here to become like Mike Tyson. That said, if he goes over to boxing and gets whooped, I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying if he did, Dana's thrown away his cash cow for nothing, or for little gain. Although, it could be the case, especially if AJ or Fury goes undisputed. If the winner of that fight, that may just be so big, especially, let's say for example, Ngannou murks John Jones twice, and murks a few other dons, and AJ or Fury, the winner of that, which would be AJ, but whoever it is, that would be a mega fight. That would be the ultimate fight. That would probably do, I don't know, who knows? Seriously, that may actually beat the Pacquiao versus Mayweather fight. Because, what do we know? Mayweather versus McGregor was as good as, or did more or less as many pay-per-views. So, that shows that the crossover fights can be as big. And that they were small dons. AJ and Ngannou, wow. We ain't seen nothing like that in this new era social media age. And it wouldn't be like Ali and that Japanese don, because they weren't really fighting. AJ's serious. Ngannou's serious. Oh yeah, and by the way, imagine, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't, but imagine if they did it and they got to do it in UFC gloves. That would be my dream. AJ versus Ngannou in UFC gloves. Wow.